Hi everyone, today I would like to represent you my final project, which is a game, a well-known game, Tic-Tac-Toe. I created this game using C++ and C++ Windows forms. The game is intended for two players. It is possible to play this game using both a mouse and the keyboard of the PC. Uh, so actually, here is the game. Uh, so let's try to play it. For example, I use a mouse and it gives me X, then the keyboard of the PC. Okay, 0, X, 0, and X, and I win. So actually, the main layout and the buttons are the following, and I would like to represent you, explain you how to start creating this kind of window with buttons. So we should start a new project. So here we choose C++ Windows Forms, and from the Solution Explorer, so here is the main window, which is resizable. We can choose the size, the background. We can add a background image, for example. Right from here. Um, then we can add buttons from here. So let's add a one. The buttons also are resizable. You can choose the size of the button, the layout, the color, the font size, everything. It is possible to change, to edit. And also I added menu entry here, which gives a possibility to start a new game, for example, or just exit the game. So if you double click on these buttons, I would like to mention that the system automatically generates the code of each button, or the code of the main form, etc. So here is the constructor of the main window. Also the constructor here. So as we can see, for example, for this button, in this code we can see all the location of the button, all the components of this button. It means the name. So we can see that the name is button1, and everything is defined here in this code. The size of the button, color, everything. So I would like to move on our main code. So here you should write your code. The system says so you should define all the steps, all the actions that will occur after clicking the button. So that's all. That's all for the first steps. So I've created 9 buttons, also a menu entry, and now let's move on to our main code. So here you can add as many buttons as you want. For example, add this third button, second button, and so on. So here, as we can see, the system itself automatically generated the code for all buttons, for all 9 buttons. So let's move on to our main part of the code. So here I declared 4 variables. So this variable is the type of unsigned integer. So this variable is responsible for defines the turn of players. This second variable is Boolean type variable. So it defines the outcome of the game, either X wins or 0 wins. The third variable, which I named it exceeds. For example, it is so when it is false, it means that the play continues, and the code continues to run. For example, if the game is over, and for example Axis win, in this case exceeds becomes equal to true, and after that there is no possibility to change anything in this button. For example, let's look here. So after that I don't have, so here exceeds equals to true. It means I cannot do anything. I cannot change anything in my game here. And this fourth variable is the number of clicked buttons in our game. Okay, this line of code is generated by the system itself, and it defines what will occur after clicking a button. For example, the button 1. So let's try to understand the code. What occurs after clicking the button. So here we have count is smaller than 9. As I've already mentioned, the count is the number of clicked buttons in my game. So this line of code is generated by the system and stands for the click that supposedly are going to be made. So every time our code here, this if statement checks if the number of clicked buttons, if it is smaller than 9, then the following code runs. So after the user makes a click and count is smaller to 9, our second if statement, this one, if function checks if the button text is blank. It means that the button isn't clicked, and it is the turn of the second player. So in my game, turn equals to 1. It means that it is the turn of the second player, and turn equals to 0. It means that it is the turn of the first player. This if statement checks if the button is blank, it means that the button isn't clicked, and it is the turn of the second player, this one. And the game isn't over, this piece of code. And after that replaces the text of the button 1 with 0. The text is asterisk by default. And it replaces the asterisk with 0, and passes the turn to the first player. So when the first player presses the button 3, for example, if the first player presses the button 3, the code is so when the first player presses the button 3, this if statement checks if the number of clicked buttons is smaller than 9. Then here the code runs from this line, because it is the turn of first player. It runs from here. Also, so it checks if the button is blank or not, and if the game is not over, then it replaces this asterisk with X and passes the turn to the second player. And in this way, the code continues to run. So here I have all possible outcomes, all possible combinations to win the game. If you count, you will see that there are 8 such combinations, but taking into account the case that these combinations can be made either from 3 axes or 3 zeros, we will have 16 possible combinations to win this game. So after replacing the asterisk of a button with either by X or 0, this if statement, this one, just a second. So this if statement checks between all possible outcomes. This b equals to true. So this b variable defines which symbol wins, either X or 0. Here I declared b to be true for x's. Here it means here turn 0. The turn 0 here means that X will emerge. So this if statement, this one, checks if the outcome is 3 axes. Then the second if statement works, and the asterisk is replaced by X win. Otherwise, if it is not the case and B is false, it means that 0 wins and the asterisk is replaced by the statements 0 wins. This exceeds equals to true. It means that no further changes can be made to the game, and the game is over. Otherwise, if button 1 remains unclicked, the count increases by 1, and this path continues So here the code for each button is the same, so I won't go through for each. I won't represent the code for each button because it is the same both for 1, for 2, and up to 9. So let's examine the end of our code. So these 4 lines are generated by the system. So this line is responsible for assures that the input, the click can be made both by mouse and by keyboard. This line of code exits from the application, from the game. Just a second. And the last line, these 2 lines are responsible for restarting the application when we choose new game. These 2 lines of code work. So that's all. Thank you for watching and goodbye.